Nobody sounds like the Sheepdogs, known for their peasant work ethic and pounding musicianship. Sheepdogs are dropping a new record called Out of Sight and embarking on a North American tour that would have made James Brown and Johnny Cash proud. Welcome top dog Ewan Curry and bass hound Ryan Gullen to CP24 Breakfast. Fellas, good morning.
Good morning. Great intro, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This stuff writes itself. Ewan, let's start with you. Look, the pandemic pressed pause on everything, right? COVID changed the world. So is Out of Sight, is it a pandemic record? You know, is this deep thoughts and a lot of emotion, introspection?
I think unofficially a little bit. It's kind of inescapable. You know, I think of rock and roll as like kind of like a music of like repression of like, you know, I'm just gonna break out, you know, like there's a lot of like teenage angst historically in rock and roll. And I think being stuck at home during the pandemic really helped me to tap back into my inner young man, my inner angst. So it was good for the rock and roll.
You know, Ryan, I try and think back to the beginning of this thing. What did the early uncertainty and the fear and the isolation teach you about, you know, yourself and the value of having a band of brothers?
I mean, I think the biggest piece of it was the longest time we ever went without making music together. So when we finally got back together, you know, and the same thing goes for when we finally got to play live. It was all these things that not necessarily took for granted, but things that we came to appreciate more, you know, just because we weren't able to do it. It was very frustrating, obviously, being a musician and not being able to play shows, not being able to get together and play music. I mean, that's our job. So, you know, we really made us really look forward to doing things, and hence why we announced a 50-date North American tour, and, you know, are very excited to get back to do what we do.
You know, Ewan, they say music is medicine, right? It's kind of hackneyed, it's a little cliche, but, you know, honestly, I really do feel that we've barely begun to even tap into the healing properties that music possesses, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, rock and roll, we operate in cliches. I mean, they work for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, like all the live streams, you know, Zoom concerts and stuff, it just doesn't do it. You got to be in the room. You got to feel music around you. You got to feel the energy of live music. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're all looking to heal. I mean, it's been a very strange time, and we miss public shared experiences. And that's, you know, I mean, music more than any of the other arts, I think. You got to do it in person. For
sure. Hey, Ryan, look, I'm the same. I speak bumper sticker every day. And playing for people, for especially you guys, you know, it completes the whole sort of creative circle. How much did you miss live music, not just as a performer, but a fan?
I think both. I mean, yeah, I've gone to shows as a fan and I've played shows as a musician. I think there's something to be said about all these things. I mean, even just this weekend, I was at the Jays game this weekend, and the feeling of being in a group of people, kind of all with a commonality, is like something that maybe I think all of us really long for. So, I mean, in both cases, I missed that shared experience, missed the, you know, so there's something to be said about like rock and roll being experienced together. We played at Lee's Palace, you know, back in November, kind of the first weekend that shows were able to happen. And the energy in that room was unlike pretty much anything we've ever experienced, because everyone is just so happy to be back and be able to like do something together and have that shared experience. And rock and roll is that thing that, you know, for a lot of people, like you had said, it's that escape. It's that thing where you can kind of be whoever you want to be at that moment. And I think that to us is really important.
The Sheepdogs, Ewan and Ryan, say hi to the rest of the pack. The tour is massive. Go online and find out the dates close to you. The new record, Out of Sight, comes out June 3rd. Fellas, thank you. Great chat. Talk again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Well, taking a look at this footage, it's hard to think that it was just 2 years ago, not this face, but the footage you're about to see. COVID has changed the way we shop, live, and work, and a new book is hoping to capture some of the tough decisions many of Canada's business leaders had to make. Andrew Willis is the co-editor of Unprecedented, Canada's top CEOs on leadership during COVID-19. It's a fascinating read, Andrew. Appreciate you joining us this morning. So many similarities in the various chapters in this book here, all these CEOs getting together and really being candid and acknowledging. Really, I found, Andrew, what was stunning, the similarity that they just didn't know what they didn't know, but had to make some pretty big decisions.
Yeah, Nick, thanks so much for having me on. Not only did they not know what to do, they just weren't getting guidance from anywhere. So we've got 30 CEOs at restaurant chains, at hotels, at grocery stores, and you get these wonderful moments like the company that owns Swiss Chalet, for example. They had all their restaurant owners on the phone line. They were waiting for guidance, first from Trudeau and then from Premier Ford in a series of press conferences. And they had to make a decision on whether or not to shut down the restaurants. none of the politicians would make a decision, and it fell on the head of Recipe Unlimited, the owner of Swiss Chalet and Harvey's. He had to make a call during a conference call and shut down all the restaurants across Canada. It was an unbelievable time. And what we've got in the book is just this series of great stories on how leaders made decisions during the pandemic and the new ground that they had to forge. They had to make decisions based not so much on profits and losses, Nick, but on what was good for their community, what was good for their employees, what was good for their customers. I think it was actually a time where leaders and CEOs learned a lot, as did all of us, on how to manage through a crisis.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and this doesn't just cover restaurants. I mean, we're talking about gyms, we're talking banks, we're talking, other food services operations like Tim Hortons, which, Roll Up the Rim is sort of an event that happens of March every year. They made the decision before they knew what was happening to scrap that and go purely digital. That transition to digital, even when you talk about Good Life as well, right? So much digital happened based on the pandemic, and the CEOs had to sort of go into this and accelerate their plans. But in many cases, Andrew, it worked out almost for the better, it seemed.
It did work out for the better. One of the good examples is the Sobeys grocery chain. They had a 4-year plan to roll out home delivery on a service that's called Voila. Mm-hmm. We're now so used to the trucks. Well, that Voila service during the pandemic had to be rolled out in 4 months. Huge strain on their IT capacity, and the CEO was very frank about this was a real struggle for us, but everybody pitched in, and as a result, they've got a really robust home delivery service. They never would have had it otherwise. So coming out the other side, Sobeys looks great and financially is performing well. But at the time, the strain on their system and is this going to work out? Can we get this up and running? Can people still get food? Those were real issues for one of the biggest grocery chains in the company.
And Andrew, while your book is a compilation of stories from CEOs, I really felt as I was reading it that it felt like a sort of testament to the resilience and the hard work of the Canadian workers, right? That everybody can relate to what happened at whatever company you work at, whether it's the Globe and Mail, whether it's Bell Media, CP24, et cetera. All of us had to adapt and change. And in many cases, the Canadian workforce did what needed to be done.
Well, that's just it. And there was a real can-do spirit. You mentioned that the toilet paper manufacturers, they were working double and triple shifts to make sure that paper stayed on the shelves. And even companies in areas where you wouldn't think, they had much to do with the pandemic directly, like Canada Goose, they're making parkas, and they got shut down early in the pandemic. Well, Canada Goose ended up repurposing all their assembly lines and making surgical scrubs. They made protective gear for hospitals, and then they sold that at cost as opposed to making a profit. So, and that was all, inspired by the workforce. The other thing that we saw was just the agility of a lot of these companies. They were able to get ideas from the front lines. For example, at Circle K, the convenience store operators, they're a big global company, but based in Canada. And one of their stores in Poland, which had early experience with COVID, they designed the plexiglass to keep the cashiers safe. That was then moved up to head office and then out to all the Canadian stores within the space of a couple of weeks. It's that agility, that quick decision making. That was sort of a hallmark of what we learned in COVID, was that when you get a good idea from the workforce, it's got to move through the company really quickly. And that, I think, is a real sign of strength that a lot of the employees worked well with the management to get ideas to keep people safe. That I think was a huge breakthrough in the way we communicate across our companies.
Yeah, it certainly was, Andrew, and it was really interesting to see how the companies with the international arms, especially ones in China, were really being able to sort of play in what they learned. Listen, Andrew Willis, appreciate the time. Unprecedented is out now, and certainly an interesting front row seat to how CEOs handle the pandemic. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
You know what we're going to do today?
What?
We are going to bake a birthday cake.
You chose to tell Jack that room was the whole world, that there was nothing else.
Familiar to many as an Academy Award-winning film, the play adaptation of Emma Donoghue's best-selling novel Room is now on stage at Mirvish's Princess of Wales Theatre. Alexis Gordon plays the lead role of Ma and joins me now to talk about her experience with the show. Welcome to CP24 Breakfast, Alexis. I was really blown away by the intensity and incredible performance of yours and the other cast members. I got to tell you, though, when I was told Room, and I was familiar with the story, was being brought with songs in it, I really didn't. I scratched my head as to what to expect. But this is a play really enhanced by song to kind of tie you into the emotional journey. Tell me a little bit about how you describe this to people before they come who are familiar with this story.
It does tread a fine line for sure. It's not your typical musical by any means. I think we're sort of calling it a play with music, in that we don't break out into dance by any means, but the songs really serve as like an emotional crack for the characters to really open up. You can put the book down, you can pause the movie. This show lets the emotions, and because it's specifically from Jack's perspective, it gives you a sort of crack open into what Ma is experiencing in a few key moments in the show.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it, because this is a really, especially the first act, it is intense. You're held captive with Ma and Jack in that room, and kind of stopping to feel your emotion does give us a chance to breathe. That's a really interesting way to put it. The set itself, and boy, the first act, it's almost a room in a cube that turns. Tell me a little bit about how this was a challenge to work with and how it really enhanced the storytelling.
I mean, we heard what it would look like, and then when we finally saw and experienced it, I find it so stunning and shocking every time how beautiful it is on the outside. On the inside, you gotta engage your abs. But it's that perfect, again, like ability to go from one side of the room in the wardrobe with Jack and rotate and be with Ma at the exact same time. It's true theater magic in that, and it's an honor to work on that stunning set every night.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And on top of that, there was this wonderful sense of imagination, almost as if through the child's eyes, often seeing it with the sort of characters on the wall, and also the interaction between Lucien and Brandon, who sort of plays an older version of Jack, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Not an older version. The idea is that it's Super Jack. So the idea is that it's inside of Jack's head. So the idea is with a movie, you can have a beautiful young actor do voiceover, but we have two awesome 10 and 11-year-old kids doing this role where they never leave the stage. So it serves as an aid to be able to get all that narration that Jack would not say out loud himself. But again, lets it be narrated, and through Jack's beautiful, youthful, optimistic, adventure-filled imagination. And yeah, those cartoon drawings all over our set really, really add to the idea of we are in a 5-year-old's brain tackling a difficult situation. It's not just a difficult situation. It's through the lens of a really unique and beautiful boy.
Yeah, it really is. We can't all connect necessarily to captivity, but we can to the struggles and the emotional connection between family members. This really is an interesting and well worth watching production. Thank you so much, Alexis, for being with us today. It runs from April 5th to May 8th, and you can find out more information, get more tickets at mirvish.com. Have a great day, Alexis.
Thanks so much.
And right now, let's bring in Alex de Robecov, who is in Ukraine. He's been speaking out to the sort of rest of the world to tell us more about what's been happening there. And Alex joins us this morning on CP24 Breakfast. Really appreciate your time this morning, Alex. Can you just tell us how you're doing and how's your family doing lately? Because we know things are really a very fluid situation.
Oh, thank you, Nick. Our family's okay as compared to many others who are now suffering in the east of Ukraine, especially dozens of thousands of people in Mariupol.
Right, and where are you now, Alex? Because you left Irpin, before your home was effectively destroyed. You got out just in time. You've been trying to help them in the meantime. What has that been like, and where exactly are you?
Yeah, we did a conscious decision to leave Irpin within the first days of the war. Now we are in a safe location in Cherkasy, which is basically in the middle of Ukraine. It's really safe here. But Irpin and Bucha, which are now worldwide known, are very much devastated and damaged by the Russian artillery and the Russian infantry.
And beyond trying to sort of help the rest of the world understand and get a sort of firsthand look at what's happening, Alex, you've also been trying to help your fellow, Ukrainians, either get out of areas or sort of find other safe places to be. How difficult has that work been based on what the Russians have done?
Well, I tried to, and I helped evacuate a family from Irpin, but then lots of my neighbors who tried to evacuate by their own cars, the civilian people were killed. were shot at by the Russian paratroopers who would try to occupy that land. I am also helping the people who are now looking for their relatives in Kramatorsk, which was shelled, or actually 2 missiles hit the Kramatorsk train station a week ago. 51 bodies identified so far, because I'm in direct contact with the morgue there. 51 people dead in the morgue.
Jeez. Alex, so much of what's been happening on the ground in Ukraine, the defense, has really been done by the Ukrainian army. A lot of the Western aid has been effectively sanctions or some military equipment. How are the Ukrainian, it sounds like you're in very direct contact, how are the Ukrainian military doing? How are the Ukrainian residents doing that you're speaking to in terms of, this has been a constant bombardment now for almost 2 months?
Well, from the first days, I talked to hundreds of people, military people, non-military people, just girls in the supermarkets who would say, well, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. Russia wanted to fear us, wanted to put fear in our hearts, in our minds, but it didn't work out. We are not afraid. We will not be afraid. We're going to fight. This is a national resistance from everyone, including the military, of course, and everyone else, including even babushkas in the villages who make pies and poison the Russian military.
It's remarkable, Alex, just to see the resolve of the Ukrainian people. It's inspiring as well. And Alex, you've got your own sort of personal inspiration. You and your wife just, welcomed a newborn baby boy into the world. Just a couple of weeks the war began. I wonder how are you dealing with that, and how you think you're going to be explaining to your son in the years to come what the first days of his life were like.
Well, thank you. I actually sing him as a lullaby song yesterday by Paul McCartney. And when I'm singing it, I'm thinking that, okay, we do not have our future now. We are stopped in this precise moment, now and here. And what we are doing now is we are fighting for the future of us, for the future of our children, and for the future of the world, to make sure that what we have today is not tomorrow for Europe, for the world, because this is what will happen if we do not stop this evil. This will be your tomorrow.
That is a powerful note to end on. Alex, congratulations on the birth of your son. Really appreciate your time. We'd love to check back in with you soon and see how things are going. So thanks again for your time this morning, and take care and good luck.
Thank you, Nick.